Hello, my name's Bill Edgett. And tonight I have a guest with me who is going to share their experiences of what they went through in the province of New Brunswick, going through the family court system. So tonight I have with me Boran Belguth. I believe I pronounced that properly. I hope so. And thank you. So yes, I'll hand it over to you, and I'll let you introduce yourself. You can probably say your name better than I did, and start off with how long ago did this process begin for you?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. So you were right on in terms of pronouncing it, like perfect. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, I mean that's something I bump into every day, right? Like that's not a familiar name, so I'm used to it. Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me today. In order to kind of express myself a little bit and probably share some positive vibes with other parents. Specifically dads, right? Because we'll talk about it a little bit more, but realize we have also moms and probably other females on the group, so we welcome them as well. We would like to have more support actually coming from them. So yeah, I'm Boren. I'm basically still young, 36 years old. I'm a father of three, and at some point I had to go through the struggle and the hustle that mainly now we see like most of the fathers are going through, just probably due to many reasons, but it's an increasing phenomena. And of course, the way how things are being set up today, sadly, is there's a little bit of a bias in there, and then like the fathers tend to be more oppressed against than the mothers.
Okay,
So
so that's great. I'm glad you're on and you're willing to share your experiences you've had with the system. So when did the whole process begin for you?
so lucky me, it was I would say it's a short process, being honest. So it started initially at the end of 2019, I'm assuming, or 2018 or so, and then basically now it's being resolved in the very last steps of it. But I will be honest with you, when it hits you, right?
Yes.
It's a shock for us. You're just imagining yourself like hardworking father and all of it, all dedicated. Yes, some of us might have some issues within with their partners or whatever, but all of a sudden now it becomes a much bigger issue, right? We're talking about the children, we're talking about so many other things, and it becomes a bigger issue, right? So when it hits you, you're not even realizing what's going on, and most of the time the system has it all set up in a way like it's easier for the mother kind of to move on and be more equipped and be more ready to kind of discard the old life and start a new life, versus the the father would be still like in a state of shock, right? Like what is going on, and not ready at all, right? So
So
um
how did things end with your divorce? So and how did, like you said, there's the court system does seem to gender or seem to award custody. Well, it doesn't seem to. They do award custody more to single mothers in Canada than they do to single fathers. That's one issue, and alienation is another issue. Um, I'd like to know how the process started for you, and was it a case of alienation or a high conflict divorce, or what totally? You said 4 years. You thought it was very quick, and in terms of alienation cases getting resolved, that is a relatively quick time. So I'm interested to hear all the steps that you went through and what happened throughout your case.
Absolutely, yes. So Bill, I've been in contact with you, right, since like a few years now. At least we were saying like 2 years at least. But
Yeah.
that's one of the things you need to do, right? So you reach out and ask and try to collect more information on what's going on. So again, when we're talking how it hits you fast, well, the very first thing you should be doing is basically recollect yourself, right? Recollect your composure and try to understand what is going on.
Yeah.
Yes, it might be hard for you to swallow it and um, accept it, but you gotta give yourself time as well. And without you, nothing is going on there. So we mentioned earlier briefly, like once you're a father, you can't undo that. That's a mission for you for life. So
Yes.
that thing that's going on in your life now, the new change, the new break, the new shock, is actually, yes, it's a big step and big thing going on, big event, but it's up to you actually to how to take that and transform that to a positive step. Now you have time to recollect for yourself, think for yourself. And then once you're good, you can do something good out of it. And that's my main message. Like it says, keep it real. That's I love it because you have to keep it real yourself first, right? What is maybe you're wrong on something or whatever, right? So like any other father, when it started with me, it was a big, huge shock because the system was used in full force from day one. Basically, I was sitting down in my vehicle, and then the police showed up and took the kids away and escorted the mother. And then since then, I'm just struggling. So it's purely like, how you see it as a father, it's like the system taking your kids away from you. But technically, there's a whole lot of a scheme of things going on before.
Okay.
Right? And that's why we're not ready, right?
Yeah. So that's it. What led up to that process? So you were married, and you had complete access to your children on a daily basis. And you said one day you're sitting in your car and the police showed up, and your children were escorted away from your home.
Yeah. Just like that. So they just took basically one side of the things. Her word versus yours, and usually emotions are being in play. So yeah. They're trying to use that. Us, we're like being caught by surprise. You're more on the defensive level. Like, hey, what you doing here? What's going on? What's the reason why you mentioning words like safety and safe and all of that? You're kind of, what's going on? Kind of state, right?
Yes.
Versus a mother would be more like, trying to make her point valid using specifically and more like majorly emotions. So yes. Even when fellow officers, and I will take a bracket here because we all work on the field. I work with police every day on a daily basis. So big respect to our fellow officers. Most of them doing a great job. However, yes. There's always right, like a spot where we have some issues. And sadly, family court violence and intimate violence and all that topic in particular is actually the weak point of our system, including the fellow officers that's being used now today to have things done like we're talking today, right? So, yeah. So when it happened, yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I was just going to say, so I'm sure there were issues, same with any marriage, that led up to this. But once the police got involved, what was your custody and access, and how often did you see your children? And if you could answer that, some Facebook users have some questions I might ask you in a minute here to cover.
Absolutely.
So yeah, what was your custody and access once the police got involved that evening?
Well, that evening, basically they just took the kids away. One blocked me and then one escorted. So usual police technique. They were just promising that the next day they would give me a call. And then they will let me know what's going on. My father was with me, so I was not alone. I had my entire family with me, so the word safety again didn't like click to me what's going on. But the next day it was on a weekend. That's the good thing, right? So that's what surprised me even more. I think on a Saturday, so it happened on Saturday, on a Sunday or something like that. I got served with papers to not approach my children for 6 months. My children, their school, my ex-wife at that time, well, my wife at the time.
What were this? Okay, you were served these papers, and what was it based on?
Well, at that time, we don't know. Well, that's why we're referring to this trauma shock state, because it is like it's served on you. And then on a Monday, you go to court trying to understand, like, even though on the shock and everything, but you still go to court and do your due diligence trying to understand what is that you're accused of and that led to that piece of paper being served on you. And magically, it's not in the court yet. It is effective as soon as it is served on you, but it's not in court yet. So you have been tried, judged, and everything without even you knowing it or being present or having anybody to defend you. And you just get served, and you don't even get access to the file until a week, 2. I forgot how long it took, and then all of a sudden they decide to reduce it to 4 months, based on what? Again, the decisions being played. It's like a chess game, but those are kids.
Okay, so yeah, and your story is not different from many others. It seems easier for a female to make a report to police and have the police act on that report than it is for a man to do the same. There are cases of that already documented in Canada where a father had a court order to have his children brought to him at 6 p.m. on a Friday evening, and then they were missing for 2 months. They weren't even in the province, and the RCMP never issued an Amber Alert for the missing children that were taken to a different province.
Yeah.
And eventually, once the children were recovered, the two people that had the children were charged criminally, and a year later, the mother and her husband were also charged. So 4 people have been now charged criminally for keeping the children in contravention of a court order, because that father had a court order and they did not return the children to him.
Mm.
But it took a year for all the parties involved in that situation to be arrested. And it took 2 months for him to get his children after the court ordered it. And there's also another case also from Alberta where a father failed to return his son to the mother on December 24th, 2021. On December 26th, an Amber Alert was issued and an arrest warrant was issued for the father under Section 282, keeping a child in contravention of a court order, and Section 127, failure to comply with a court order. So 282, the Attorney General of the province needs to approve charges under that section because it's a serious criminal offense with a charge of up to 10 years jail time. So again, these are 2 cases in Canada that are from a year ago, and both were handled very differently based on a male making the report and a female making the report. And I think there's a huge disparity between the two making reports and getting help from the system. And I think that's what you were saying, where you were. You didn't even know what you were facing. You were hauled into court. You weren't allowed to see your children. You were emotional. And according to Dr. Stephen Miller, because people are traumatized from events like this, they present as traumatized. But what the courts see is someone who is not having normal range behavior for the average person. Yeah. So instead of recognizing that this is a trauma response, they usually believe that party is the cause of all the problems in this situation and make wrong decisions 95% of the time, according to the study that was conducted by Dr. Stephen Miller. And how long ago was that you had to go to court for that and deal with this custody and access issue?
Yeah, I think it took around 6 months or so for me to kind of to recollect and recollect everything, like, you know, physically, emotionally, moved from that area to different area. Back at the time, I was a recruiter and a headhunter. So, and the spot where I was is technically a closed area, so everybody knows each other. So anything that happens, you know, everybody knows about it. Now, you know how things go, amplified and all of it. The story version changes and so on and so forth. But just technically, I had people eating popcorn and watching what's going on, you know, the neighbors and everything, because every time there was police involvement and everything. So for them, it's like something new, right? Yeah, I mean, on my end, it took at least 6 months so I can recollect and then say, okay, so let's try to make a step and then see what's going on and all of it. And I believe she is the one who actually took it to court before I do. And then the system, that's where the issue is. Now, the system is not set up for this kind of scenario. It's not. You're not there to kind of discuss and see what's wrong and try to collect things and then move both of you as parents. Actually, the system will directly give custody to her and systems and things that she could use so she can move on. But on your end, you're just like stuck there. And you have to defend yourself. You have to kind of reclaim things that you already had, and there's no reasons for them to be taken away from you. You've been a father for years, and then all of a sudden, because of this, she said so, right, without anything to substantiate or whatever. Now you're not a good father anymore, right? And that impacts you forever, for
It
everything, like
does.
everything you do, right? Um, so COVID hit, and that prolonged things, the status quo, and but at the end, because if you keep it real, like we're saying, you know who you are, you know what you want, where you're going. We all know that a child is a child. We're coming from a mother and from a father. A child will need both of them. So us as fathers, when I say us, in terms of parenting, we should not like prevent our children from seeing their mothers. That hurts us because we're expecting the same, but that's not the case. In most of cases, it's a personal issue between male and female. Turns out, okay, I'm gonna basically use your children against you because we know you love them. If the father was not loving their children, was not looking for them, then she would be after him. Here's your children, here's your children, because that's the way gonna to still bug them up. But it is still used as a tool. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yes,
yeah.
they are. The children are used as tools, and a lot of professionals call it domestic violence by proxy, or intimate partner violence by proxy, or just intimate partner violence, because intimate partner violence affects the entire family. So if one party is affected by any kind of trauma or abuse, it it carries over to everyone else involved in the situation and the entire family.
Hmm. Absolutely. Is there any questions you would like us to
Yes,
answer by chance from the public
yes,
there?
there is one here from a Facebook user. What should fathers do if mother refused to comply with court order and evading the jurisdiction? The baby mother said it would be traumatized a child life knowing who their father is. So let's put that right up there. So there's the question one of the Facebook users asked. And what did you do when children were withheld from you? Were they withheld from you, or did you have regular access to your children throughout this process?
So on my end, I ensured that the children remain in the province of New Brunswick. So I ensured that from the beginning,
Okay.
using proofs and data that I kept collecting to show that hey, there's a risk that she might actually take the kids away from the province. And
Okay.
then I demonstrated that the children moved away so many times, right? So that was also used initially to at least lock the situation to New Brunswick and Moncton specifically.
Okay.
Um, Now, after that, of course, there's the system. System. There's nothing we can do. You appear in front of a master. He says something. The next master will say something different. We have lack of judges, basically, of capital. You know, human resources, people to handle things. So everything is just being done. Like every time it's a different story. So the family court is not a spot where you want to go and resolve your issue. So I tried initially, you know, to communicate in a peaceful way with my ex-wife before even anything happens, because separations happen. It happens in within first, right? So from that period, you start the peaceful talk, right? And I kept it that way technically, whether it is legal or not. I didn't feed into it when they were saying, "Oh, you're this big bad guy and monster and all of this." Just don't defend yourself because you have nothing to defend. If they have to prove it. Now on your end, all you need to do is just point out the contradiction. Because if someone is lying, they're contradicting themselves at some point, right?
Yeah.
Um, so if anything happens, file everything. Be the first one to go to court. In this case here, you're fearing for them to take your kids away. Well, be there and let the court know. Here's my findings. Here's what I want, and here's the reasons behind. As long as you're moving for the best interest of your children and you're able to demonstrate that, they will not. There's nothing they can do at the end. They can't bring you down. They'll bring you down if you have any holes in you. They're gonna use that against you. Now, if you keep it real, again, right? You keep it straight. You keep going for your goals. Let's say, I don't know, you have a bad habit, right? Drinking, whatever, going out, whatever. Work on it. It's a mission, right? It's a mission. So it's a job. Take it as a job. And instead of getting paid money, you're getting your kids back, right? That's how system is. That's how life now. Everything has to be hard earned. That's one
Yeah.
of those things.
And I don't think fathers should have to work that hard to be a part of their children's lives. And you're right. That seems to be the process now. That if a father wants to be in their children's life, they have to go to court, make applications, beg, plead, and you know, just do everything in their power to try and convince the courts they're a good, loving parent and they deserve to be in their children's lives. It's wrong that parents, because not just men suffer this, women suffer it too. And I know some women, it. If I wasn't aware of all the facts in the case myself, I would have difficulty believing this had happened to another. But when her case, this mother that I've been dealing with and talking with, her case is one of the worst I've ever seen, and it's unbelievable. And once the courts, it's an adversarial system, and they pick sides. And once they pick a side, they stay there, and all they want to do is maintain the status quo. And they want you to go away because a judge in the province of New Brunswick informed me that 98% of the divorce cases in New Brunswick resolve prior to trial. So they will continue to make case conferences. You'll be in front of a different master or judge almost every time you're in court. There's no continuancy with the case. No one knows what's going on, and all they're doing is reading these reports that were used to take your children away from you in the first place that were not substantiated, because there is no burden of proof in family court to award custody to one parent over the other. It's completely at the discretion of the judge. So it's a terrifying place to be, because you could be a good, loving parent, and because someone has made false allegations against you and you've been served with a recognizance, which is a criminal court issue, the family courts will take that into consideration when they make the decision for custody and access, which is not what's supposed to happen, because it's a criminal matter, which is supposed to be dealt with in a criminal court that has rules for evidence, and there is requirements to meet a burden of proof. There's no such requirement to meet a burden of proof in civil court or in family court, and judges have the complete discretion to make judgments how they see fit, and they allow these allegations of criminal offenses to influence their decisions, which is a violation of your Charter of Rights to be treated as if innocent until proven guilty before a judge, jury, or tribunal of your peers. But this happens every day in the family courts, and it's a very sad process.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so what is your current custody and access situation now?
Well, so far I'm having them like on a progressive manner technically. So far it's 3 days every week technically. So, and then the end goal is by end of this year we meet up the 50-50 parenting time.
That's great.
The reasons behind this is because, again, I was sadly separated from them for about a year with extremely minimum contact. Now, extremely minimum contact, I would like to emphasize and insist on that, because at some point, that's all you have. And just don't give up. Use the minimum contact. Even if you can't text them, a small text will send you back, love you, daddy. That's good. That's awesome, because you're still there. And they still know you're still there. You're keeping it alive. One day things will change. Children will grow up, and then they will remember that small, nice, little, tiny text. I remember that, and I love that. Those are small things, but they help you. So just don't give up on those ones. It did help me, right?
So what would have your typical access been prior to this new court order? Would you have seen them once a week, twice a week, once a month? What kind of visitation did you have with your children prior to this latest court order?
Well, it did change a lot. So at some point, I was having like only 2 weekends basically in a month, right? but the court order was always open for arrangement. And initially, at some point, I was able to arrange, to be honest. But again, the issue is that the system, it gives a power to one side, like you just mentioned. So in this particular case, like, I'm married, I have joint custody, but I don't have parenting time. I don't have access, which is completely weird for no valid reason. Like, it's just for no valid reason or whatsoever. But
Okay, just if I could just stop you there to explain that. So you have joint custody, but only limited parenting time. So, so most people, when they hear the term joint custody, they think parents have equal access. So you're saying you had joint custody in your court order, but your parenting time was less than equal?
absolutely. So joint custody, basically, they will need your signature on a few things. They will need your consent on a few things. You're still making decisions, but not the day-to-day care decisions. Basically, she may override you if she wants, but still, on few things she cannot. But so that's the whole idea, right? So from full privilege that you have, full jurisdiction in your family over your own members of family that's given to you naturally, they just take that away from you and they label it as a different. They give you different jurisdiction. Oh, you're only available for 2 days on, which doesn't make any sense. Like, if the children wants to see their children and they have access, then why you are limiting the access in the first place? It should be 50-50 until, since we know, all of us, we know the process takes time. All of us, we know it's impacting everybody and everything. Why not just making it simple and clear? Once we determine, okay, this guy is not fit, this lady is not fit, well, then we can start talking about changing things. But initially, it's just a breakup. It's a divorce, it's a breakup. And the system should be do the opposite of what they're doing right now. They should be supporting these two members that's breaking up so they can keep at least the children safe. The children are the thieves of tomorrow. These would be the judges next day in the police, next day in CPS, next day, and so on and so forth. Now, CPS is another ball of game, right? I was going to say one thing about CPS. Just don't talk to CPS. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I agree. That they I'm sure they mean well, and they're dealing with a lot more severe cases, I believe, than two parents arguing over children and saying, well, he doesn't feed them properly, or she doesn't buy him the treats that she likes, and they don't see these as issues to deal with, and they're right, they shouldn't be dealt with. But again, some of these complaints were made about me, and I know how the system can be abused.
Yeah.
Right now, I have a couple more questions. There's actually quite a few comments and questions here. I'm going to ask you this one, and we'll see if we can try to answer it together. I'll just post it up here. I have a question. I had primary physical custody of my two kids. I received child support from the mom, and went to school in my district, but we had 50-50 custody. We had a fair and professional gal, guardian ad litem, but when she was replaced, I found out about that what everyone meant when they say a god with a god complex. It started with our very first meeting. The gal, Angela Morehouse, left my house upset and asking why I wasn't paying child support. It was biased from day one. The final straw was when she was, and it stops right there. So this sounds like somebody had primary physical custody of the two kids and received child support from the mother. So this would have been male, I'm assuming. And if not, not being prejudiced, don't mean to say anything. People can make their own decisions. Right now, to me, it sounds like this was a father. He was getting child support, and he had primary physical custody. And the guardian ad litem seemed biased. So we don't have the guardian ad litem here in New Brunswick. So I'm guessing this person is probably from Ontario, or from somewhere else, maybe the United States, where they have this.
Excuse me.
Guardian ad litem is someone who is appointed by the courts to represent the children's best interest in a high conflict divorce, where they try to go in and make decisions in the best interest of the children instead of trying to decide which of the two parents is lying or which one is a better parent for them to be placed with. Um, so that's a difficult question for you, Warren. Let's go and try another one. Oh, yes, I am a woman married to a woman who was alienated. That was another comment from a Facebook user. Scott here. The CAS discourages shared parenting when there is a protection order. And that's what we were talking about earlier. A protection order was brought against you, and immediately you had to go to court, and you're being denied access to your children because of the allegations, not proven, just allegations alone. So were you ever proven to have been violent in any way?
There's no proof, there's no charges, there's no nothing. So basically, the points that I was accused of were not minor; they were like big things, such as drug dealing and I don't know what else. At some point, I was actually treated by the police like I was Al Capone or something. Like people surveilling you and on a daily basis, right? So getting pulled over and all the fun stuff, right? But yeah, I mean that's how things went down initially, right? But if you keep it up again, like keep it clean, everything, there's nothing against you. So the police themselves are just gonna give up, right? Like they're gonna realize, no, it's just misleading. Now the issue is after realizing it is misleading, there's nothing that's being done to prevent that from happening again.
Yes.
While we know it is happening all the time, right? It's waste of resource and all of it. And it keeps, in my case, kept happening again and again.
So it's funny you mentioned that. The province of New Brunswick has an office of support enforcement. So if you fail to make your child support payments, someone shows up at your door immediately. They'll either take your license or start garnishing your wages or possibly even throw you in jail. There's no one that enforces custody and access orders.
Yep.
Now, the Family Services Act of New Brunswick specifically prohibits police from intervening and removing a child from one parent to another in these situations. I think that is a big problem. While we don't want the police to be doing that, we need them to be able to do something when one party violates a court order, which is a criminal offense under Section 127 of the Criminal Code, failure to comply with a court order. So if people are allowed to continually break the law without any repercussions, they will continue to do it. And this is where the system gets abusive and allows intimate partner violence or domestic violence by proxy, or however you want to label it, to align with the abuser to help abuse the target parent or the victim of the allegations. I've got some more responses here. I'm just going to share a couple with them. This one here is from a Facebook user, and I really like this one. Children should never have to be so isolated from the loving and caring parent by the hate-filled parent. That spreads more world hate than love. What do you think of that? Like you were saying that earlier. You didn't want to keep the children from their mother, and you thought it was wrong. So what do you think about that state? I love it.
I love it too. Like that's the most simplest way to kind of put it down there for everyone. Like here, it doesn't matter, and this actually applies on everyone, including let's talk about the highest ones, the judges that's gonna have the power of the pen coming down right to the piece of paper and making a court order. The children should not pay for any of the hate of any of the parents. And that we realize that we're talking to you, all of you, the whole system, right? This is to let you know we realize it's not working at all. So we need to start changing things. And us, the only thing we can do is this: share with you the pain we went through, the things we did, right? But it's really up to the people with the power in their hands. Like, how come we would talk to them, right? Like all of us had an official at least conversations, right? Like with some people, and then they will confess. They will tell you system is broken down and everything, and even it happens to us, blah blah blah. So why is that everyone is not doing anything, right? There's like that's the biggest issue here. So now when you take a look at two parents, this is a personal problem, and then this parent starts hating on the other parent for whatever reason, right? And then the children now are being the victim. Is they're paying for whatever is going on. They were already paying because you're not having a good, like, communication, all of it. So already in your home, then household, before it breaks down, for sure it was not healthy. Now you take one of them away completely, and then you start lying. Your father is this, or your mother is this, and this, and this, and this, and putting all that in their head. Like you have no idea what you're doing to that kid. For them, like the mom is the superhero. That's everything. The dad is the superhero. That's everything. When they go to bed, they went to ride with the daddy, or did this, cook this with mommy, blah blah blah, anything. But it's all mommy and daddy. It's like, that's their word. It's one word. Now you broke it up to two pieces. You're trying to paint one of those in black, and the problem is the system is supporting you doing this.
Yes. Yes, you're right. Children naturally are trusting and loving, and for them to turn against one parent, that's taught. That's learned behavior. Children have to learn to not trust or to hate, and that's what's. I mean, well, you're right. When children are subjected to this type of environment, that's what they learn, and they will share this generationally because they grow up in that environment, see it as normal, don't um, don't grow up with the proper attachments because of this breakup in the family, might not have proper boundaries, and this will carry on throughout their life and will affect every relationship they have. So you're right. This is very damaging, and some other people have Facebook user. Hopefully, the government is covering your kids' mental health repair costs. Yeah, no, they they create a lot of damage, and then they walk away and leave you to deal with the mess. And how are your children? How are they handling this situation? You still have a good relationship?
Yes. Well, I'm very happy, very glad, very proud as well. Being honest, it turned out well against all odds, right? Against the pain, against everything. It's like, I don't know. I kind of find a way to take all that, just exhausted. It's us who makes the decision again. If you're coming down with a low level of energy and coming down with bad ideas, and you're not going anywhere, that's where your kids gonna go. That's the direction you're giving to your children. Now, if you're coming up with good energy and everything, and you have that power to kind of, you know, erase a little bit smoothly what was happening, the bad things, and show them the bright side of life. Here, that's the past. That's something, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the future. If that's your mentality and your attitude from the beginning, that's where you're gonna get, right? But if you're not, if you're like, complaining, crying, whining all day long, we all go through that process. Don't get me wrong. Like everybody, right? Like I'm a hard to cry person, but when that was happening to me, I was crying like a baby. Like I was just lost in the sauce, completely lost in the sauce. But don't let that kill you. Don't let that take you down. If you feel like you want to have some drinks here and there, whatever, just keep it moderate. Keep yourself. Don't fall. Basically, I'm just saying, don't fall. Keep it real with yourself and keep going. Keep it just for your kids, and positive. That's all I can say, right? So.
All right. So yeah, I've got a few more questions here from other people, and one of them here. There's some people from Texas even commenting about their cases, and that's great that we have so many people, taking part and asking questions. And I hope we can help everyone and try to answer some questions or provide them some help. This one here by Ben Abganti. And how do you deal with contempt situations? Do you go to the police? So what did you do when you had any problems with seeing your children? Did you go to the police? Did you go to court? What did you do?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. Now that this is sad, okay? I went to the police from the very early stages. I was never served. I was never like nothing. Nothing's going to happen. You call them, they won't assist. They won't, like you said, they will not enforce any court order. They won't do anything. So the only way I found was doable was going to court. I went to court and filed things myself initially. Because again, when you go through that, you're broke, you're down, but you had to do something. So I did that something, but I moved on. I had to worked hard, collected enough money so I can consult, at least get some legal advice at the beginning, and then you can hire a lawyer if you need. So that way, at least the financial aspect, it is a long battle. If you're going to court, you better get ready. As soon as you hear court, get ready. All right. So it's not gonna be tomorrow. It's gonna take time. So you have enough time to build yourself. So don't waste your time going down, right? And then waste your time building yourself and use court. The sheriff probably would be the most appropriate, I think, for enforcing court orders. I believe the RCMP have the jurisdiction as well, but I don't know technically what is going on because none of them is doing anything.
I've spoken with RCMP officers, and they read to me directly from the Division J training manual that they do not enforce court orders as per the Family Services Act of the Province of New Brunswick. While I've made numerous complaints and reports to them, I was not looking for them to enforce the court order at any time. I was looking for them to conduct a criminal investigation of the failure to comply with the court order and the failure to allow me to see my children in compliance with the court order. Both are criminal offenses. One is Section 127 of the Criminal Code, and one is 282. Their response to me is, we do not criminalize civil matters. And I wasn't looking for them to criminalize a civil matter. I was looking for them to conduct a criminal investigation on criminal code violations. And they failed to do so. Currently, I believe I have 51 reports with the RCMP, and I've contacted my MP, John Williamson, to get all the files and complaints I've made to the RCMP under the Right to Information Protection and Privacy Act, because they failed to provide me with any in compliance with my request dating back to 2017. So it's a difficult process trying to get help from police or the court, and I'm surprised at how well you did. Like you said, your case is now resolved, and you have your children, which is great, and I'm so happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, here's another Facebook user. If contempt of court law in the best of your child is broken, a law report must be made for the well-being of your child. It's not about a parent using and abusing law and false allegations for custody leverage. Okay, and there's another valid point. If someone is breaking the law, you should report it. And that's the difficulty I find we have. I'm sure you've made numerous reports, the same as me. What kind of success did you have, or did any kind of investigations ever take place, or did any of your reports lead to anything?
In all honesty, the only one thing you could use your reports for is during the trial, probably if you get to the process of a trial. And if you had a fair, I will call it, I'm sorry, but everybody knows me, right? And especially you, Bill, but I'm a big mouth, right? So if you get a fair judge that's going to give you a fair view to your case and examine all the evidence and not being biased, then you may have a chance. Okay. But sadly, like, you don't have, that's not happening, right? So reports, no. I didn't get anything besides like, hey, I have this against you, or I have this, I did this because it's due diligence, but technically on the field, it gave me nothing, right? Again, the best thing to do is try to resolve your issues amicably, right? And avoid court. That's what the court wants you to do. So.
Yes. But you did file reports with the police, and they did help you when you did get to court. Is that correct? From what you just said there?
No, it didn't help me because technically I didn't even have to kind of present my case at all. And I loved the way it was done because I didn't want that to happen, right? But okay. Again, like when you do reports, the maximum I had in my case, I don't want to go deeply into details because again, like the police was involved too much in my life that it actually caused issues, big issues, and I might have to be kind of let's say considering legal actions against them, right? So that's why I'm kind of reluctant a little bit
Yeah,
regarding that, but
I
yeah,
understand
I mean
completely.
that's the main thing. Like they go to them, you go to them with proof, you go to them with everything, and then it's just because you're not the mother, just because you're not the first one, you're not the one to do the first impression. That's it. That's done. So no matter what you're gonna say or do, whatever, that's it. That's case closed. They will not go against each other to back you up, right? So that's the whole thing. And now that's what we're asking for. There's a little bit of accountability because at some point you're given like responsibility bigger than anybody else.
Mm. That's
And
great
these
that you
are
mentioned.
yeah,
Sorry, it was great that you mentioned accountability because it seems throughout this process of false allegations, which is, I believe it's a violation of Section 140 of the Criminal Code, public mischief, where a false report made to the police leads to an ongoing investigation, such as a recognizance being issued in court, um, court decisions being made and influenced by these false reports. It's a criminal offense. And these are regularly ignored because I've made numerous reports of public mischief, and they have not been investigated by neither the St. John Police Department or the RCMP. Um, did you have any similar problems with that?
absolutely. That's actually the main problem, right? Um, at some point, the police had a case against me, a
Hmm.
weak case,
Yes.
and they still decided to push it through the court like criminal,
Hmm.
but technically it was rejected twice. So that just tells you like how weak the case was. But during the process, I tried to connect with these officers, and I was like, "Yeah, I hope you realize this is being used in family court
Hmm.
because of that specific case." The 1 year breakup between me and my kids happened because technically it was used as, oh, there's investigations, here's the case number, then there you go, you cannot see your kids, you're a risk till proven otherwise, which is again against all human rights. um, but at the same time they had opened up a case for perjury, public mischief, everything against the mother.
Yes.
So they had two cases, one from me and one from her. But the one from her used in family court, and one from me was not used anywhere,
Wow.
absolutely nowhere. Case was dismissed. So this is just an example of where you could go with all the evidence and everything when you go to the police. Because I didn't go empty-handed.
Yeah.
You know how we work, Bill.
Yes.
So,
So, do you think that this situation could have been resolved sooner if there had been accountability, or the police did take action instead of just trying to brush it away and hoping, sending you back to family court to deal with this instead of doing a proper investigation into the criminal allegations and criminal complaints?
absolutely. It was from the very steps, like the very first seconds they came into my house. So again, you're sitting down in your house, and police come to you and then tell you technically, hey, we're here to take your kids away from you. And they don't have time to explain to you why, and they
Hmm.
don't have time to neither listen to you or your questions or none of it. They're just there to do something. This is completely wrong. How can you proceed like this? Since when you became a judge? You just created a court order instantly on the spot, and you took my kid away. Right
Yes.
now, why? Because you're wearing a uniform and you have a gun on you, and I'm a civilian. I cannot defend myself. I don't have jurisdiction over you. I'm not a public servant, so on and so forth. You have the power, right? And then from there, you would use the next level power, which is CPS and child protection, all of it. Now, it's an intimate partner violence thing, right? And from there, that's where things escalate because now they created this shield, this legal shield that's gonna, protect more, the victim there, and we all know who's going to be the victim there. And then, it's all directed against you. It's a shield against you, technically. There's nothing you can do. Here's the law. Here's the court order. These are police officers taking your kids away. It's not like we could be all crazy and you say like, hey, I would die for my kids and all of this. But when you see this happening to you, like that, truly, what you gonna do, right? Nothing you can do. So
I agree.
that's where it starts. That's where the issue is. Most of the cases, that's what's going on. Right.
Okay. Right. Well, so we're getting low on time here, and my phone could die at any time. So I guess we'll call it an evening. I'd just like to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story of what you've been through and the process you went through. And I'd like to congratulate you on getting the last order of returning to joint shared custody, 50-50 custody. So that's great, and I'm so happy for you. I know you've been years fighting for this, and I'm glad it's finally come around, and you do have. You're working towards that 50-50 custody.
Yeah, I appreciate Bill. Thank you for what you're doing there. Keep doing what you're doing, right? And hopefully, like everyone, just stick together. It doesn't matter who we are, what gender we are, whatever we are. It's just about the future. It's just about children. Children are innocent. They don't have to pay for any of this, right? Let them grow up and make their decisions. They want to be a failure. It's up on them. It's not us to be the cause of their failure. That's wrong.
Yes. All right. Again, great. Thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate you taking the time to share your story.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one, then.